Hey guys, and welcome back to Scarlet Sprites. Today we are looking at one of the most ambitious controllers to ever be included with a home console, and that of course is the original Neo Geo AES arcade stick. So believe it or not, until recently I've never owned a Neo Geo AES controller. In fact, I don't even own an AES console. My thought has always been that if I want the arcade experience, I'll play the game on my big red arcade cabinet, and if I want more of a console experience, I'll pop that same cartridge into the Neo Geo Omega and use the CD gamepads. I've talked about this before, so several of you already know how much I really like the oversized buttons, as well as a time when clicky thumbsticks were not very hard to make. Pushing all of that aside, as a Neo Geo fan and collector, I did feel as though it was time to get an AES stick to try out. So I started searching forums and eBay, and I accidentally ended up going from having none to then having two. Both of these, however, are in really great shape. You can see there is minimal scratching on the tops, and that the gold Neo Geo logo is still fully intact on both controller bases, which is really nice, since a lot of these have long since had the Neo Geo logo faded or otherwise worn off. Okay, so two sticks. The purist in me says, let's set the one that's in the best shape aside and keep it as is. The inquisitive side of me then says, let's mod the other one. So how are we going to do that? Well, nothing too crazy, but we are going to swap out the buttons and ball top for genuine Seimitsu parts. A lot of people will prefer Sanwa, which is a great Japanese arcade brand, but I find the Sanwa buttons just a little bit more squishy, and for my own personal preferences, that makes me lean more towards the Seimitsu buttons. Okay, with that out of the way, where and what are we getting? There are a few decent places to source parts from, but I went to arcadeshock.com and did a little shopping. I bought a black 35mm ball top, and just to note, they do have 30mm ball tops, which are closer to the original size of the AES topper, but I went with the 35mm, and as a spoiler, I'm really glad that I did that. I then picked out 4 Seimitsu 24mm snap-in style push buttons in the traditional red, yellow, green, and blue colors you'd expect to find on an MVS control panel. So let's get started. The first thing we got to do is open this thing up. There are 5 screws in the bottom, 4 of which are hidden by rubber feet, and we have our first issue. The rubber feet are dry rotted. This won't be pretty, but I decided to just pop the screwdriver right through them and proceed. I later would apply some Goo Gone and completely remove all traces of the original feet. These are then easily replaced by rubber feet that you can pick up at a variety of places, including Amazon. After the screws are out, we can finally pop open the controller and take a look inside. The first thing I'm going to do is place a flat screwdriver on the bottom of the control stick so I can rotate the old cracked ball top off and then set that aside. You can also see that the buttons are all wired up to one PCB, and in fact, they are even nicely labeled. There are 5 wires across the bottom that need desoldered, 1 for A, B, and C, and then 2 wires on D. The other 3 wires above, 2 black and 1 brown, are grounds that I'm going to also desolder. Once that is finished, you can then easily unscrew the assembly and lift it out. Here's a quick look at the stock buttons and setup. With the factory originals removed, you can now snap in your new 24mm buttons. They should pop in fairly easily and hold, but I made sure that the metal posts were somewhat aligned on the inside to make soldering a bit easier. And on that note, you guessed it, we're just going to solder the wires that we took from the PCB directly to the buttons. The wire you took from A will go to the red button, B to yellow, and so on for C and D. I'll mention now that I know I'm not the best at soldering. I can tin the iron, use flux, and well, it's pretty much amateur hour mostly, but I can get by on very simple projects like this. Once the button wires are done, I then took the 3 grounds, twisted them together, and soldered them to the second post on the A button. To get ground going to the other 3 buttons, I simply soldered a wire from one button to the next. And once that's completed, you're finished with the buttons. At this point, I placed the screwdriver back into the bottom of the stick to hold it in place, and I put on my new 35mm ball top. And at this point, I'm completely finished working on the inside and I can put it all back together. I think the finished product looks great, and it's cool to have 2 different style controllers for the Neo Geo. The buttons feel exactly like I'd expect them to since they are arcade authentic. I will note though, you lose a little bit of weight on the stick with the removal of the original button assembly. If that is a concern to you, you might want to consider keeping the stock buttons or otherwise artificially adding weight on the inside. For me, I'm perfectly fine with the weight reduction, but I thought it was at least worth mentioning. So that's it for today, guys. Just a really simple mod, even for someone with subpar soldering skills such as myself. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and definitely let me know if you like the new look or what colors you have chosen or would mod your Neo Geo controller with. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you all next time. Later, guys.